Monids and essences. Beloved friends, we are once again gathered here in this place to talk in a detailed manner about the different causes which lead intellectual humanoids down the descending, involuting path toward the infernal regions. Unquestionably, millions of descending, involuting creatures are crossing Acheron to enter Hades in this instant. Waves of humanoids, after having completed the cycle of existences in the physical three-dimensional world of Euclid, cease to take up human bodies to definitely submerge themselves into the mineral kingdom. Certainly, the evil of the world, no matter how monstrous it might be, has a stop, a defined limit. What would become of the universe if there was no insurmountable obstacle to evil? Obviously, the latter develops infinitely until reigning sovereignly in all spheres. Here it is good to highlight with total meridian clarity the tremendous reality of the 108 existences assigned to every living essence, to every spiritual divine principle. This comes to remind us of the 108 beads of Buddha's necklace and the 108 turns that the Hindu Brahmin makes around the sacred cow. It is indubitable that with the last turn, he finishes his daily rite. He then introduces the tale of the aforementioned animal in the tumbler of water that he will drink. Having understood this, we can continue. It is obvious that the divine Mother Kundalini, the igneous serpent of our magical powers, attempts to achieve our inner self-realization during the course of the 108 existences assigned to each of us. Ostensibly, within such a cycle of successive lives, we have innumerable opportunities for self-realization. To take advantage of them is the indicated thing. Unfortunately, we repeat errors incessantly, and the end result is customarily failure. It is plain and evident that not all human beings want to tread the path that will lead them to final liberation. The different messengers that have come from above, prophets, avatars, great apostles, have always wanted to point out for us, with exact precision, the rocky road which leads to the authentic and legitimate happiness. Unfortunately, people want nothing to do with divine wisdom. They have imprisoned the masters, they have assassinated the avatars, they have bathed themselves with the blood of the just. They mortally hate everything that has a flavor of divinity. However, everyone, like Pilate, washes his hands. They believe they are saints. They suppose that they march on the road of perfection. We cannot deny the conclusive and definitive fact that there are millions of sincerely mistaken people who very honestly presume to be virtuous and think the best of themselves. In the Tartarus, there are all kinds of hermits, mistaken mystics, sublime fakirs, priests of many cults, penitents of all types, who would accept everything except the tremendous truth that they are lost and that they march on the path of evil. However, the believers are not able to agree among themselves because they have their consciousness asleep. They know nothing. Nothing is evident to them. They have never personally talked with an angel. They have never consciously and positively entered the celestial regions. They walk because others walk, eat because others eat, talk because others talk, and in this manner they proceed from the cradle to the sepulchre with blindfolded eyes. Unfortunately, time passes with terrifying swiftness. The cycle of human existences ends, and finally the devotees, convinced that they are on the correct path, enter the horrible abode of Pluto, where only crying and the gnashing of teeth are heard. The descent of the human waves into the interior of the planetary organism is carried out descending through the animal and vegetable levels, until definitely entering the mineral state in the very center of the planet Earth. I want you to comprehend that it is in the very center of this planet where millions of humans pass through that second death of which the Apocalypse of St. John talked about. It is evident that the destruction of the myself, the annihilation of the ego, the dissolution of the myself in the submerged regions of the Avernus, is absolutely indispensable for the destruction of the evil within each of us. Obviously, only through the death of the ego is the liberation of the essence made possible. Then the latter resurges, it comes to the planetary surface, to the light of the sun, to begin again a new evolving process within the painful wheel of samsara. The reascent always takes place going through the mineral, vegetable, and animal states until reconquering the human state that was formerly lost. It is clear that with re-entry to this state, we are once again assigned 108 existences. That if we do not take advantage of them properly, this will lead us on the descending path of return to the Avernus. In any case, dear brothers, noble ladies, that listen to me, it is good for you to know that each essence, each soul, is always assigned 3,000 of these cycles of cosmic manifestation. Whoever definitely fails, whoever does not know how to take advantage of the countless opportunities which these 3,000 periods furnish us, confer upon us, will remain excluded from mastery forever. In the latter case, that immortal spark that all of us carry within, the sublime monad gathers up its essence. That is, its spiritual principles. It absorbs them into itself, and it then submerges into the universal spirit of life forever. In this manner, then, the monads without mastery, those that did not achieve mastery or who definitely did not want it, remain excluded from any hierarchical rank, I clarify. Not all the immortal sparks, not all the sublime monads want mastery. When any monad, when any divine spark truly wants to reach the sublime state of master monad, it is indubitable that it then works its essence, its soul, awakening in this soul infinite desires of transcendental spirituality. Question: Master, because of everything that you have just explained, it seems to be, if I am not mistaken, that is precisely what Lord Krishna wanted to say when he talked about the transmigration of souls, and also the Master Pythagoras when he referred to metempsychosis. Is this so? Answer: I hear the question posed by the gentleman, and it is clear that I hasten to answer. Friends, ladies, certainly what I'm affirming tonight has documentation in India and in Greece. The first with the marvelous doctrine presented by that ancient Hindu avatar called Krishna, and the second with the doctrine of Pythagoras. Obviously, the metempsychosis of that great Greek philosopher and the doctrine of transmigration of souls taught by the Hindu avatar are identical in form and in depth. Unfortunately, people distort the teaching and in the end reject it in an arbitrary manner. Question: Illustrious Master, what I do not comprehend is the reason why distinguished figures known as masters, such as the Lady H.P.B. and Charles Leadbeater, along with Annie Besant, founders of the Theosophical Society, and persons with faculties of clairvoyance, clairaudience, and other powers, never took note of the facts that both the great Kabir Jesus, as well as Krishna, Pythagoras, and you, Master S, have taught. But on the contrary, they have proclaimed in huge treatises of great fame in the world of pseudo-esoteric schools that man inexorably walks on the ascending path of evolution until one day, with the passage of time, he arrives at perfection and becomes one with the Father. Can you explain such an incongruence? Answer: I listened to the gentleman that asked such a very important question, and it is unquestionable that I hasten to answer him in the best manner possible. Certainly, the laws of evolution and of involution work in a harmonious and coordinated manner in all of nature. It is indubitable that every rise is followed by a fall, every ascent by a descent. It would be absurd, therefore, to suppose that the law of evolution was something different. If we ascend a mountain, we will undoubtedly arrive at the peak. Afterwards, we would need to descend. This is how the law of evolution and involution is, my dear brothers. These two great laws constitute the mechanical axis of all nature. If any of these two laws was to functioning for just a moment, all natural mechanisms would in fact become paralyzed. There is evolution in the grain that germinates, grows, and develops. Involution exists in the plant that withers and dies. There is evolution in the creature that develops within the maternal womb, in the child that is born, in the adolescent, in the youth. Involution exists in he who ages, and the evolving and involutive processes are completely organized within this great creation. Unfortunately, those who have become stuck in the dogma of evolution are no longer capable of comprehending the INF five-night destructive and decadent processes of everything that is, of everything that has been, and of everything that shall be. Neither evolution nor involution could ever take us to the inner self-realization of the being. If we truly want to liberate ourselves, if we seriously aspire to authentic happiness, we need to, urgently and in an undelayable manner, enter the path of the revolution of consciousness. It is not superfluous to emphasize the transcendental and transcending idea that it is not possible to arrive at the great reality as long as we turn incessantly with the wheel of samsara. Of what use is it, ladies and gentlemen, to return incessantly to this valley of tears, evolve and involute constantly, and to descend again and again into the infernal worlds? It is our duty to awaken consciousness to see the path that will lead us with absolute precision towards the final liberation. Unquestionably, many famous, intelligent persons of occult knowledge transmitted to humanity a simple, elementary teaching at the end of the past century and at the beginning of the present century. It is clear that such persons only proposed to publicly teach the ABC of the secret doctrine. At that time, they did not spend much time in the analysis of the evolving and involutive laws. R. Steiner already affirmed in 1912 that they, the initiates of that age, had only delivered an incipient, elementary knowledge, but that later a superior esoteric doctrine of transcendental nature would be given to humanity. Now, we are delivering this type of superior esoteric doctrine. It is then indispensable not to condemn or criticize those who in the past worked in some way for humanity. They did what they could. Now we should elucidate and clarify. Question: Master, you were saying that some monads have an interest in achieving self-realization and others do not, although all of them emanate from the Absolute. I conceptualize that all of them had the duty to search for their self-realization. Can you explain a little more about this? Answer: I listen to the question of the young man, and I answer with great pleasure. Before anything else, friends, I want you to comprehend that what is divine, God, the universal spirit of life, is not dictatorial. If that which is real, if that which is the truth, if that which is not of time, was of a dictatorial type, what luck could we expect? Friends, God respects in himself his own freedom. With this, I want to say that within the bosom of the divine, there does not exist dictatorships. Every virginal spark, every monad has complete freedom to accept or reject mastery. Understood. Question: with this that you have just explained, Master, we can say that the monad is responsible for the essence going to hell? Answer: I see in the audience a lady who, with complete sincerity, has asked this question, and it is evident at I am happy to answer. Ladies and gentlemen, when a divine monad wants mastery, it is ostensible that it achieves it by working the essence incessantly from within, from the most profound part. It is plain and evident that if the monad is not interested in mastery, it will never awaken any intimate aspiration in the embodied essence. Obviously, in this case, the essence deprived of every aspiration, imprisoned in the ego, stuffed in the myself, will enter the infernal worlds. Therefore, I answer in an emphatic manner saying, the monad is guilty of the failure of the essence. If the monad would really work the essence profoundly, it is unquestionable that the latter would never descend in failure into Tartarus. Question. Master, it appalls me to think that my essence would have to pass through suffering during 108 lives multiplied by 3,000, or rather 324,000 human existences, so that in the final analysis, it will get to live in the absolute in the form of a failed monad, or rather, without self-realization. In these circumstances, it is worth it to make all the possible efforts and sacrifices to achieve self-realization, however much suffering this implies, since they are absolutely nothing in comparison to those that nature will impose on me, will choose the path of failure. Don't you think so? Answer. Distinguished sir, great friend, allow me to tell you in an emphatic manner that every divine spark, every monad, can choose the path. It is indubitable that in the infinite space there exist trillions of absolutely innocent monads beyond good and evil. Many of them attempted to attain mastery, but unfortunately they failed. Millions of others never wanted mastery. Now submerged in the bosom of the universal spirit of life, they enjoy authentic divine happiness because they are flashes of the divinity. Unfortunately, they do not possess mastery. The gentleman that asks this question, it is clear, has enormous yearnings. This is due to his interior monad animating him and working him incessantly. His duty is to proceed with firmness on the path of the razor's edge until he achieves the intimate self-realization of the being. Question. Master, is it because of this that many persons to whom one talks about the Gnostic teachings, although they grasp perfectly what we explain to them, do not decide to follow the path of the revolution of consciousness? Does this mean that their monad does not work them to follow the path of self-realization? Answer. I will answer the young man who asked this question. We need profound reflection to focus on this matter from diverse angles. It happens that to many monads, it is pleasurable to proceed slowly, with the risk that their essences fail in each cycle of human existences. Others prefer to work their essences in an intermittent manner, now and again. And lastly, we have monads that definitely do not ever work their essence. This, then, is the motive why not all persons that listen to this teaching really accept it. However, it is convenient to know that someone who, for example, in this present existence did not accept the gospel of the new age of Aquarius, could accept it in subsequent lives, as long as they have not reached the 108th life. Question. Master, these monads that are never interested in working their essence belong only to the planet Earth, or do they also exist on other planets? Answer. Young friend, remember the law of philosophical analogies, the law of correspondences and of numerology. As it is above, so is it below. Earth is not the only inhabited planet in the starry space. The plurality of the inhabited worlds is a tremendous reality. This invites us to comprehend that the monads of other planets also enjoy complete freedom to accept or reject mastery. Personality, essence, is different. With this, I want to say in an emphatic M the following. Not all the existing human personalities in the other inhabited worlds of the infinite space have fallen as low as we, the inhabitants of the earth. Friends, in the diverse spheres of the infinite, exist marvelous planetary humanities that proceed in accordance with the great cosmic laws. However, I repeat, not all monads want mastery. Hells exist on all the worlds, in all the galaxies, but not all the planetary hells are inhabited. The sun, for example, is a marvelous star that with its light illuminates all the planets of the solar system of Ors. It is interesting to know that the infernal worlds of the king star are completely clean. Obviously, in this brilliant sun, it is not possible to find cosmic failures. None of its inhabitants proceed in submerged involution. The creatures that live on the king star are completely divine. They are solar spirits. It is convenient not to forget that any cosmic unit that surges into life possesses, inevitably, a mineral kingdom submerged among the natural infradimensions. There exist worlds whose submerged mineral kingdom is densely populated. Among them is our planet Earth. This points out to us the failure of many monads. We need, however, to go into depth a little more on this matter and understand with complete clarity that the descent of any essence to the horrible abode of Pluto does not always mean definite failure. It is ostensible that the final failure is only for the essences, for the monads that did not achieve self-realization in the 3,000 cycles or periods of existences. Better said, in the 3,000 turns of the wheel of samsara, since on arriving at the last of these, as I have said many times, the doors are shut.